Well, afternoon, everyone. Bill Rentschler, along with Sports Director Kevin Sjuts in the 1011 Now streaming studio. Again, Kevin, this is a really cool new space that we have to us. Allows us to do a lot of really cool things. One of those really cool things that I think we get to do today, we get to go through the bracket. Again, work production going to come to a screeching halt over the next several weeks.
That's assuming, though, there was work production prior to this.
This is true. This is true. So Kevin's going to take us through the men's bracket. We're going to make our picks with Kevin, and then I'll have some information on this at the very end. But folks at home, you can play along with us. I'll have a bracket in there. You'll have a bracket in there. I'm sure many people here at the station will have brackets in here. But you can play along. Folks can try and beat Kevin Sjuts. You were an AP voter this year in college basketball. I'm sure a lot of people probably saw you tweeted out your rankings every week. So you paid special attention to the season this year. Kind of before we dive into this, it's kind of been a crazy season.
Wild season. Historic season. You know, everybody likes the upset, no matter what the sport is. This college basketball season, every single week, there were a handful of upsets in the top 25. It was tough being a voter this year. And I say that in two regards. Number one, it was hard always identifying who were those last 5 spots, because that seemed to be like a rolling change every year or every week. And then there's so much instability at the top. But I think it stabilized over the past couple of weeks, Bill. And then, of course, the bracket was announced Sunday night on 10/11. CBS announcing the top 4 picks first, and they went through the bracket. There are not a whole lot of huge surprises when it comes to the bracket. The field of 68 was pretty much what it was expected. There was some interesting matchups for the first round, and then that 3, 4, 5 line, that's what fascinates me. I don't know that there's a huge gap between a lot of the teams that are a 2 seed and a 5 seed. I think this bracket, this year's tournament, could be even more wild, if you can imagine that, than the tournament's ever been.
And I mean, you had Rutgers was left out. That was kind of a surprise. Obviously, preseason #1, North Carolina. They didn't make it this year, chose not to play in the NIT. I think Penn State got seeded pretty low. Texas A&M got seeded pretty low. So there's going to be a lot of good basketball games here over the next several weeks. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started. We'll just start in the South. Again, #1 overall seed, Alabama. They're obviously playing the play-in game. I think I know which direction you're going to go with this pick, but Kevin, take us through the South region.
We're going to just go ahead and hit Alabama to the next round. They're playing as well as anybody. Obviously, #1 this week. They just won the SEC tournament. They're the #1 overall seed. It's going to be a trendy pick to get to the Final Four. Are they going to win a championship? Do not know. But we'll get to that more as we go through the bracket. The 8-9 game right below Alabama's one of the more fascinating games. Maryland out of the Big Ten. 8 Big Ten teams make the field. West Virginia played in the brutal Big 12 this year. They've got some real quality wins. You know, I'm a Big Ten guy. I like Maryland. I think they're really good. They spent some time in the top 25 earlier in the year. And so before we move forward, let's just keep going down the line. San Diego State versus Charleston. A lot of folks may not realize Charleston, I believe, ranked 2nd in college basketball in wins this year. They were in the top 25 a few weeks. They won the Colonial. Not an impressive resume in terms of quality wins. They're really good. That 5-12 is always a trendy upset pick. You try to look for who's the 12 that's going to beat the 5. I'm going Charleston right off the bat. So here we go, 3 picks in, and Kevin's already got an upset
in.
But I don't think Charleston's a 12 seed. I think they're much better than that. I was surprised that they're the underdog in that game. They're 31-3 this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can pull up their stats here, and again, their net. I mean, they're 51st in the net.
16-2 in the Colonial.
31-3.
Hofstra.
I mean, they're averaging 81 points a game, defense 67 points a game. Those are pretty good numbers for the Colonial.
This is it right there, Bill.
Yep.
228 in strength of schedule. Haven't been tested a ton. San Diego State's going to test them. That team, they can D up. They're really, really good defensively.
And both teams coming in pretty hot. San Diego State 9-1 their last 10. Charleston 10-0 in their last 10.
All right, I'm taking Charleston. I'm not going to flinch on that. Now, Virginia, that's one of the teams I said before the bracket was announced that I like them. The Cavaliers at their ceiling are really good. Multiple weeks inside the top 10. Tony Bennett, one of the better coaches in college basketball, and this is a team, they won a national championship a few years ago. You know, that was after they got beat as the 1 seed, and then the next year they come back and they win the whole thing. Moving along in this bracket, Creighton, NC State. A lot of people have interest about that. I was shocked that NC State made it. That's a team that I thought was maybe one of the last teams in. Only one quad 1 win. Creighton's played a brutal schedule. Big East has really tested them.
I think meteorologist Brandon Rector probably did some lobbying of the NCAA tournament selection committee to get the Wolfpack in there. I know he's probably going to pick NC State. Which direction do you think we're going to go here, though? I think Creighton.
I'm taking Creighton without hesitation. I think Creighton will win their first-round game. It's going to be Friday in Denver. I like the Jays in that matchup, and Baylor Shireman, the Aurora kid, who's had a really nice season with the Blue Jays. Baylor, I'm taking Baylor over Cal Santa Barbara. I think Baylor's really, really good. You think typically Coach Drew's teams play good defense, slow the game down. This is a different Baylor team. They can run, they can score at a pretty high clip. I love this round of 32 matchup between Creighton and Baylor.
That's going to be a good one.
It might be first one to 90 wins that game. That's going to be a lot of fun. Missouri, Utah State. Utah State's hot. The Aggies are pretty good, and the Mountain West this year has been better than it's been maybe ever. And they got hot at the right time. They're playing really well. So let's pull up the information on Utah State right now. 26-8 overall. Missouri 24-9. This is one that when you're filling out your bracket, you're going to probably stop and think long and hard about what we're going to do here. You can see that strength of schedule, Utah State has played tough, and part of that is because the Mountain West has been so good. Utah State last 10, 7-3. Missouri's 7-3 over their last 10. I'm going to go down here, and we're going to make our decision solely based on who's going to play the better defense in this. So I know it's got opponents' points per game. Utah State has the edge on Missouri. I'm going to take the Aggies. Call it a slight upset there. Missouri, by the way, first-year head coach. He's done a phenomenal job. They're in my poll this week. They're a top 25 team. I believe they come in at number 23 this week.
Nice. The final poll.
Arizona, Princeton. Cool to see an Ivy League team get in every year. They won their conference. That game was on Sunday.
Do you think they're going to be running the Princeton offense?
They will run the Princeton offense. How could you be Princeton and not run
the Princeton offense, right?
All right. So that's what we got in the first round winners in this side of the bracket. We're going to go ahead and just finish out the bracket, Bill.
However you want to do it. We go South, Midwest, or we just go it all the way out. It's up to you.
I like to stay locked in when you're looking at a certain group of teams. Looking at 68 teams can get overwhelming.
You get distracted.
So let's just try to get all the way through the South region. Alabama, Maryland. I'll take Alabama and Brandon Miller, the likely national freshman of the year. Pretty good.
Do you think Alabama might have it? I mean, there's a lot going on outside the Alabama basketball program. You don't think that's going to serve too much of a distraction for them as they get into tournament time?
I think it will. But not in the first weekend.
Not in the first weekend?
I just think they are that good.
Okay.
And I think they can get through that first weekend. Of course, the storyline is there. So many questions, especially when it's tournament time, Bill. You know, everything's pretty regimented with the NCAA on when's your practice time, when you're going to this function, when are your interviews, national exposure. Obviously, they're going to face a ton of questions about how this year has gone and how they're navigating a legal situation that has involved one of the best players in college basketball. But I got Alabama into the Sweet 16.
So Charleston versus Virginia?
I can't go against Virginia, even though I really like Charleston. That was one of the teams I was curious to see what's that draw looks like. It would look like. If they were maybe a 10, I would consider getting Charleston deeper, but I'll take Virginia. Creighton, Baylor, Utah State, Arizona. I'm going to take Creighton.
All right.
Just because I really like the offense, and I think Coach McDermott has a pretty veteran team. I can see them getting hot. I think they're going to win 2 in Denver. And then I'm going to take Arizona as well. Arizona just beat UCLA over the weekend in the Pac-12 championship. That Arizona team, they've got an All-American in Tubelis, one of the better shooters in the country. So that's...
And just beating UCLA in the Pac-12 championship game the other night.
Awesome game, too.
It was.
That was a great game. UCLA nearly hit a shot at the buzzer to win it, but Arizona survives. We got Alabama, Virginia, Arizona, Creighton in the South in the Sweet 16. I'm going to take Alabama to advance to the Elite 8. I'm going to take Arizona. I know Kevin's getting really adventurous here in the South region.
Bracket. There's a lot more regions for us to get away from it.
We got 1 and 2. I'm going to take Arizona to get to the Final Four. So
all right.
I don't know if I undid that.
There we go.
There we go. I've got Arizona coming out of the South. So
I like that pick. I think that's a good pick. And I think, again, you got some upsets in there. I think that's a good region for you.
I think Alabama is the best team in college basketball right now.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I think they're going to win a national championship.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Alabama in the Final Four. I just cannot take them at this point in time.
All right, which direction you want to go? Midwest?
Yep, while we're up on the bracket, let's go ahead and hit up the,
all right, so you got
Midwest region.
Houston, 1 seed Houston over Northern Kentucky, I believe, here.
Just go ahead and hit Houston off to the side.
All right, there we go.
We're going to hit Houston a few times, but we'll get to that here in a second.
I like this match. This will be an interesting game, 8 Iowa versus 9 Auburn. I feel like Iowa's kind of been... They're either scoring 110 points or they're, scoring 50 points like they did against Nebraska early in the Big Ten season.
Absolutely right. And the CBS guys during the bracket reveal, they were gushing over this first-round matchup. That is a dandy. I'm going to take Iowa. I think the Big Ten's going to have a pretty decent first-round or first weekend in the NCAA tournament.
All right, 5 Miami, 12 Drake.
I really like Miami. Go ahead and move Miami along. I love Indiana this year. They have star power, and I think they're deep enough on the bench that they could play pretty deep into the tournament. So I'm going to take...
get Trace Jackson-Davis, on a little bit of a heater here rolling through the tournament. I've seen Indiana being a trendy pick going all the way to the Final Four.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, Trace Jackson-Davis. That was one of the guys I put on my first-team All-American list. He's as good as advertised. And sometimes that's what you look for when you're filling out your bracket. Star power.
Oh, yeah.
Who can carry you? And who do you project or can envision being the spotlighted guy when you're getting ready to watch the games and they're doing the preview shows? Which guys are they sitting down and doing the interviews with? I think a lot of people will learn about Trace Jackson-Davis over the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Iowa State, they have a they will play the play-in game, which is Mississippi State
and
Pitt. That's right. So again, we're kind of unsure on who Iowa State is playing here, but Iowa State's had a pretty good season again coming out of the Big 12. There's really no bad teams.
13 losses.
And still
That's a high number of losses, but they play in the Big 12. Iowa State, I believe, has 9 quad 1 wins, maybe 10 quad 1 wins. They have double-digit quad 1 losses, too. They've been through the meat grinder. They're really good. I will say, it's hard because you have the play-in game and you don't know who they're going to face. A play-in game winner typically will make it to the second weekend in the NCAA tournament. So that is so hard to pick. And it's risky to go there, but if you feel confident about a team, don't be afraid to do that because it does tend to happen. I've liked Pitt this year. Jeff Capel, National Coach of the Year candidate. But this is in a down ACC year. So it's hard to not pick Iowa State, given their body of work and given how battle-tested this team is. So let's go ahead and close this down, Bill, and let's move Iowa State along.
All right, and then right below them, Xavier versus Kennesaw State, the 3-14 matchup.
Xavier just got rocked in the Big East Championship the other day, but sometimes that's not a bad thing. They got hammered by Marquette. I could see that being used as motivation for the NCAA tournament. That's a team that they're not fully healthy, but they're still pretty good. They can fill it up. Let's move. We're going to take Xavier, but hey, if anybody has a really good scouting report on Kennesaw State and you like them, go ahead and move them along. It's not uncommon to have a 14 beat a 3.
Oh, I mean, you feel like the last couple of years we've had multiple 14s, 15s. I mean, even UMBC a couple years ago, 16 advancing to the second round. Again, another super interesting matchup, I think, here. Texas A&M.
This is my favorite first-round game of the entire bracket.
And I feel like I've paid more attention to Texas A&M this year because Cole Griffith, former 10-11 sports reporter with us, so I've seen a lot of their highlights on Twitter and all that stuff. Really good team. Just lost in the SEC championship game, I believe. And Penn State making it all the way to the Big Ten championship game as I think a
10 seed.
10 seed, yeah.
You have a pair of conference tournament runners-up. So both teams are hot right now. Jalen Pickett is an All-America candidate, point guard from Penn State. So good. Texas A&M surged on, excellent last month. That is a fantastic first-round game. And that game, oh, by the way, is in Des Moines. So for folks that are considering maybe going somewhere to watch basketball, I know that there will be folks from this area because Kansas is in Des Moines. I know that that's in a different time slot. It's going to be in the afternoon. The morning session, awesome game right there.
Absolutely.
Texas A&M versus Penn State. Let's move Texas A&M along. I think Penn State might be a little bit gassed because they had to play
Purdue that last game. And anytime you play Zach Edey, someone's hurting, someone's tired.
That'll wear on you. Good point. And then the last game there on the first round portion of the Midwest region. Let's go ahead and move Texas along. Just won the Big 12 championship. So,
all right. So back up to the top.
We're all chalk so far, but it's going to get pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Houston to beat Iowa in the second round. I'm going to take Indiana to beat Miami in the second round. Let's go ahead and throw Xavier along, and I'm going to take Texas over Texas A&M. So we're 1, 2, 3, 4, which again, don't come at me. Yes, there are upsets, but typically what happens in the NCAA tournament is you have one day of complete chaos,
Yep.
and then the other day,
Chalk.
snooze fest.
Yep.
All chalk. Games aren't close.
Yep.
I think this might be one of those cases where you're going to get some favored teams winning.
Good.
I'm going to take Indiana over Houston, though. This is where we're going to flip it a little bit.
I like that pick.
I really like Indiana. I'm going to like Texas to get past Xavier. And then heading to the Final Four, go Big Ten. I'm taking Indiana to the Final Four.
There we go.
So far, we got Arizona and Indiana in the Final Four.
Uh-oh.
I say that. But then when you always look back to like, I know, how risky of a choice is that? That might be Indiana's biggest challenge, I believe, is Miami.
Miami's got to get past pesky 12-seed Drake first. I mean,
it's very true.
Yeah. All right. Going down to the bottom side of the bracket, back over to your side, Kevin. East section, this is where number 1 seed Purdue lives. And a couple interesting matchups here.
Do you think Texas Southern can match up with a 7-foot 4-inch center? I'd say no.
As well as I probably could match up with the 7'4" center. So no.
That's right. Purdue, we got moving on. FAU, Max Abmas, he's one of the better scorers in college basketball against Memphis, who just won the American Conference. I'm taking FAU.
I think that's a super interesting matchup. If you pull up, I think FAU's net, I think they were top.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. 13 for FAU. So 31-3.
And even in the KenPom, FAU is pretty high. Their offensive efficiency is off the charts.
Almost 80 points a game.
Yeah, that's a fun team to watch, FAU. 31-3, I believe, on the season. So that's a tough opponent for Memphis. But then Memphis has proven they can beat, they played Houston in back-to-back weekends, beat them in the conference title game. Previous week, they lost on a buzzer beater. So I like that one, but I'm going to take FAU. Just Max Abmas, I think, is going to show out in the tournament. I got Duke over Oral Roberts. However, the Summit League champs, they are hot right now, over 30 wins this year. Tennessee does not have their point guard. Got hurt, Zakai Ziegler. I think that's really going to affect them. This is a popular upset pick for a lot of people. Louisiana are going, a lot of people going Louisiana over Tennessee. Let's go with Tennessee. They're still pretty balanced. They're still pretty good. Kentucky, Providence. If I don't pick Providence, I will hear from Friar Nation, who gave me so much grief earlier in the season because I wasn't ranking them. Took me a long time to get there.
Yeah.
Sorry. Fill up my inbox some more. Kansas State, Montana. Kansas State, really good. We'll get to more on them in a second. Michigan State, USC. I'll go Michigan State, Marquette, and then the Catamounts of Vermont. I like Marquette. I said we'll get to Kansas State more in a second. I'm taking Purdue over FAU. I'm taking Duke over Tennessee. I love this Duke team. Nick Filipowski is really good. Point guard, one of the better point guards in the country. Probably a one-and-done guy. And they're coming on strong. Duke has
won the ACC tournament.
Convincingly.
Over Virginia.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Kansas State over Kentucky. They say guard play results in deep runs at the NCAA tournament. Typically. They have two of the better guards in college basketball in the same backcourt. Keontae is so good, a Florida transfer. So I'll take Kansas, and then I'm going to take Marquette as well. So we are 1, 2, 3, and 5. I'm going to take, I'm going to take Purdue. I'm going to take Marquette. And I got Purdue going to the Final Four.
All right. I like that. I think Purdue is going to be really hard to beat. I think anytime you got anything over 7 foot, very hard to beat.
Purdue has not been to the Final Four since 1980, Bill, so it's not as easy as we're just going to click and run. But this Purdue team, they have something that nobody else has in college basketball, and a 7'4" center who is going to be likely the National Player of the Year. Was the Big Ten Player of the Year in Zach Edey. I worry about Purdue's depth. I don't know how, besides Zach Edey, they have other nice pieces, but I don't know that they can carry a team deep into the tournament.
I know they've relied on some freshmen this year that have played some big pieces in their run, but again, March is different than everything else. Will those freshmen perform like they have?
And officiating will be very interesting because there might be crews that are going to officiate a Purdue game, and they probably haven't had to manage a hack-a-eaty situation. Will they let it go? Will they whistle a lot? What's the foul line totals going to look like? But that's a factor that could really affect Purdue as they navigate through the tournament. But still, overall, Purdue team's pretty good. We're going to move them into the Final Four. I feel fairly confident about that, though I want to go Duke deeper, but I can't.
They have a tough matchup with Tennessee potentially in that second round and Purdue in the Sweet 16.
Right.
All right. What about back here over on the other side? Again, we're looking at number 1 seed Kansas versus Howard again. That's going to be in Des Moines.
Yeah.
I think Kansas likely probably moves through there for you.
Kansas is going to move through, but before we get too deep, I'm going to say this. This West portion of the bracket, you know, I've stared at it at home after the bracket and stared at it and stared at it. And just for the record, this is the first bracket that I have filled out. I wrote nothing on Sunday night. I just watched. I listened to a couple podcasts. Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander, I think they have the best podcast for college basketball out there. And they were even saying some things about, you know, I believe in the KGIN-TV, in the West region alone, 6 of the top 11 teams in the KGIN-TV are in the same region. So this is going to be the hardest part of filling out your bracket if you're trying to go off of what we know from the regular season. So we're going to move Kansas along. Arkansas, Illinois.
I mean, who do you pick there?
I'm picking Arkansas. I've watched Illinois a lot this year. They're a puzzling team. They have some great quality wins this year. They've beaten UCLA. They've beaten Michigan State. I mean, they took Virginia to the wire. They're too inconsistent for me. I'm going to take Arkansas.
And I know their head coach escapes me, but I know Arkansas's head coach he's a quality guy, and I know you probably don't want to bet against him.
Eric Musselman.
Musselman, that's right. I was going to say Messel. I was close.
But they've gotten in a little bit of a negative light on them right now. But I'm still taking them to move on to face Kansas in the next round.
Ooh, all right.
Those games, by the way, are in Des Moines on Thursday afternoon.
Good 5-12 matchup here. St. Mary's feels like they're always putting out a good team coming out from out west. And VCU, the Rams.
That's a darling, right? They tend to make a run. Go ahead and hit the info bar so we can get this pop up here. I want to point something out. St. Mary's, a lot of people may not know much about St. Mary's. I know this. They play in the Western, in the Pacific time zone. Pacific time zone for a guy who gets off work at 11 o'clock, that means you watch them a lot.
For you.
They're a good team. They're a really good team. What I wanted to show, 11th in the net. This team is pretty good. They haven't faced a ton of top 25. Number 12 schedule. It's a pretty well-balanced team. They went 14-2 in the West Coast Conference.
And that's the same conference as Gonzaga, correct? So I mean, correct. I mean, they're playing them twice a year.
Yep, and that's who they played in the conference championship game. So St. Mary's, they're pretty good. VCU, 15-3 out of the A10. I'm going to take St. Mary's. Go ahead and close that down, and we'll advance St. Mary's. UConn, Iona. All the metrics say UConn is one of the best teams in college basketball.
8 for a net.
They spent time as the number 1 team. They went through a lull in the backside of January. They've regained their footing. What are the last 10? Their last 10, they have to be pretty salty.
8-2. But Iona, 10-0 in their last 10. So they're different competition, but both coming in on a bit of a heater.
All right, let's go ahead and take UConn. That was one of the 3 teams I said before the bracket. I really want to see where they're at because I could see myself taking them deep. UConn, Virginia, and Baylor.
And I think you said all 3 of them kind of had bad draws.
They're in with Kansas.
Yep.
They're in the super monster bracket in the West. So that's what's tough with UConn. But I do like that team. They've got a big guy, Sonogo, who, you know, when they run through him, they're really, really good.
Another interesting matchup, 6 TCU. They're playing the play-in game, which is Arizona State and Nevada. I really like TCU. Again, I feel like they've had a pretty good team all year, again, coming out of the Big 12. But again, that play-in game, like you said, these play-in teams sometimes are making it to the second weekend.
Right. Surprised Nevada got in. They got in with an at-large berth. They lost their last 3 games, and they're playing in the Mountain West Conference. Compare that to, you know, a TCU team that has played a top 25 team once, if not twice a week. TCU's getting healthy. They're good. Let's move TCU. Oh, I like that. I didn't notice till they have users pick on there. So if we wanted to cheat, we could just say, well, the general population says TCU. So, yeah, we're going to go with TCU winning in the first round. Gonzaga plays Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon, excuse me. Let's move Gonzaga along.
Northwestern's kind of my sleeper pick to make a deep run. I could see them making an Elite Eight, maybe getting past then.
Hey, that's not a bad pick, Bill.
I know.
Good guard play, veteran team.
And the amount of times I've heard Boo Booey from, especially when they're playing Nebraska, it's like, man, I know how good these guys are. So
Boo Booey, Chase Audige, Chris Collins is the coach of the year in the Big Ten. I'm gonna be with you here. Let's move Northwestern along.
And then UCLA, UNC, Asheville. Any 15s upsetting anyone this year?
I don't see a 15 beating a 2 this year, but crazier things have happened. So that's what we got so far. So far, we're chalking in the Midwest. But now is when it gets very difficult when picking the West bracket. Excuse me. Let's move Kansas along. Bill Self is back with the team after missing the Big 12 tournament. Let's move UConn. Think they'll beat St. Mary's. Gonzaga. Gonzaga's a Sweet 16 team. Beyond that, we'll see. And let's take UCLA. Though, for you can fill out on your bracket. You take that Northwestern.
I will be picking Northwestern on my bracket. All right, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4 here in the West.
We're going to go UConn beating Kansas. I think Kansas is the most vulnerable of the number 1 seeds.
And they're defending champions, correct? Kansas?
They're the defending champs. But I say that not in any disrespect to what they have in terms of a lineup. They lost so much from last year's title team.
They did.
About 70% of their offensive production. They're still really good. I just think it's going to be so hard. Kansas has the most difficult path to the Final Four. And plus, here's an interesting fact. This regional, Sweet 16 and Elite 8 in the West will be played in Las Vegas.
Ooh. They're going to be.
So if these are the teams in Las Vegas, Kansas, UConn, Gonzaga, and UCLA, Las Vegas, there are going to be so many people that follow Gonzaga in Las Vegas. There will be so many people that follow UCLA in Las Vegas. It's going to be tough for Kansas. This is tough. So if you're looking to advance your ones, but maybe hold one back,
Kansas is probably, and just the sheer fact how difficult it is to repeat as a champion kind of puts them down the order, at least in the 1 seeds.
Absolutely.
In my opinion.
So we got UConn defeating Kansas. I'm going to take Gonzaga to beat UConn, and I'm putting Gonzaga in the Final Four.
All right. So we have
Drew Timme did not come back for a 17th year of college eligibility to not make the Final Four.
So we have a Final Four of Arizona, Purdue, Indiana, and Gonzaga.
All right. Now that I look at it, now we start getting, regretful. Is that a word?
I mean, you could
because they only have 1-1, and it's Purdue.
But you're all being taught. I mean, just won 1, but you got a 2, a 3, and a 4. It's not like you got.
I'm putting a lot of stock in the Big Ten right now.
Could it be an all Big Ten final?
No.
You don't think so? All right.
No, we can't do that. Let's put Gonzaga into the championship game. Love the Zags. I think they've just kind of hung out all season. They played a monstrous non-con schedule. They took some losses. It kept them. They went out of the rankings, I believe, for a few weeks. So, but they're pretty good.
And I feel we've been talking about Gonzaga in the Final Four and championship games, I feel like forever, at least for the past 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah.
They haven't been able to break through. You feel like eventually Mark Few will get it done. Could this be their year?
This could be the year. Oh, man. I'm not going to go back on any of my picks, but now I'm starting to regret, not having Alabama in the Final Four. If Alabama's here, I can see Alabama getting to the championship game. I'm going to go with it. I'm not going to sell out to myself. Let's go with Arizona beating Purdue.
We got a West Coast teams,
We got a West Coast championship game between Arizona and Gonzaga. No number 1 seed in the final. That's not going to happen. There will be a 1 seed in the final. Bill, I'm taking Gonzaga to win the whole thing.
There's your champion. Gonzaga.
That's my pick.
We'll
I think it needs me to put in. There we go. The Gonzaga Bulldogs.
Kevin Sjuts' pick. All right, so now for everyone watching, and right now we're live on Facebook, we're live on YouTube, we're live on the 1011 Now live stream. I'm going to pull it up here.
You could tell how confident I felt in that pick by me just sighing at the last second.
You want to play along with us. You want to try and beat Kevin Sjuts. You go to CBSSports.com, you go to their bracket page, you find the 1011 News, parentheses, KOLN pool. And you join there, and our password is sports. You do one bracket per entry. You know, there's no prizes, there's no entry fees, not doing anything like that. This is all just for fun, so you can kind of keep along and do that. But that's how, if you want to play along, that's the direction that you got to go, cbssports.com. And
I did not handle risk management very well.
It's your first one, though. I mean, usually you fill out a couple. You kind of, one of them's maybe be a little more risk averse. One of them is a little more risky. This is
risky because Gonzaga might not make it past the Sweet 16 because UCLA, they might have to play UCLA. But if your situation plays out, UCLA loses to Northwestern,
that's right,
then we might be okay.
Next 2 weeks are going to be a lot of fun.
And what's really cool, as a CBS affiliate, we get eyeballs on our news. It's really, really neat to see who's playing on our network. Obviously, they're spread across 4 different networks. CBS is one of them, and then we have newscasts right after the games on, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then we have games on 10-11 on Sunday as well.
Play-in games, probably, when do play-in games start? Is it
Tuesday and Wednesday?
So, okay, so tomorrow and Wednesday is when we see those play-in games, and then I imagine Thursday, Friday is when that first round really starts in earnest, correct?
Yep, Thursday, 11 a.m. Games get started. I believe the first game on 10-11 is Alabama, the #1 overall seed.
Alabama, there we go.
Getting to play right here on 10-11.
All right, anything else we want to add before we kind of let everyone go?
That's it.
All right.
Don't laugh at me too much, especially when Gonzaga gets beaten the first round.
All right, well, appreciate everyone for watching again. As always, keep it tuned to 10-11 on air and online for all of your news, weather, and sports. Kevin will have all the latest on all the NCAA stuff coming up later this week. So, again, make sure everyone stays tuned. Appreciate everyone for joining in, and hope everyone has a nice Monday.